Professor, you have Andries Tatane being killed in 2011. You have the Marikana massacre in 2012. A lot of South Africans will be asking if public order policing, the management, the training has changed in light of these very dark clouds that hang over our public order policing unit in South Africa. We see a lot of community protests that have ignited across the country. Has anything changed in the last 5, 6, 7 years?
Well, I think we've seen a slight increase in the number of police officers being deployed within these public order policing units. We see also an increase maybe in the number of them that's been trained, but I'm not convinced that it really had an impact as far as the conduct is concerned at these specific incidents. From what we see from media reports and also the video images, obviously, they don't seem to act in a coordinated way that would demonstrate typically that they've been well trained. You would see police officers, individual police officers, placing themselves in harm's way with the way that they conduct themselves at these scenes, running after people, for example, and then finding them surrounded by members of these communities that are in protest, and then reverting to using violence to protect themselves. So I think the practical things that we see, unfortunately, says it's not been changed that much the last 5 years.
The police commissioner yesterday spoke about appropriate use of non-lethal weapons. In your mind, is this an issue of lethal or non-lethal? It's not about weapons, it's about tactics and strategies, am I correct?
Absolutely. The whole idea with crowd control is to prevent any sort of violence. You also don't want to be the cause of the violence at these protest actions. So typically what the police should try and do is trying to prevent having to use force, because the moment you start using force in the South African circumstances we've seen, when the crowd would start running, people within the crowd start running away from the police, that is typically when they would start causing damage, breaking windows, looting and so on. So it's very important for the police to understand what their role is and for someone to take the responsibility of mediation before you actually start talking about what firearms, what weapons should be used.
Do we have an expectation that police are expected to fulfill mediation roles that should be done by local government before it even gets to that point?
I think it's a very important issue that you're raising here. There are mediators within the police, but it's usually more where you've got a hostage situation. The type of mediation that we need in South Africa is similar to what we see is being used in Brazil, for example, where there would be experienced professional people within a mediation unit that's available to intervene when a community is in conflict with whatever authority they might have a problem with, and for them to get everyone on board, to have a discussion, to try and solve the problems, and for the police then to only play their traditional role of protecting and making sure everyone is safe during the negotiations. It's not a police function to solve the issues that we currently see in South Africa that people are protesting about.